Am I up? All right. I'm not sure anymore. I'm up. Too fun. Thank you. Thank you. It's already been a fabulous morning. Oh, you're leaving. You're leaving? Jeez Louise, I didn't leave when you came. Just saying. No, I'm very pleased to be here. This is my last stop on the road, and I have to say, this place, this thing you have going here, this is one of the coolest places. Oh.
I'm just going to move that from you.
Sure. Oh, thanks. All right. Whoop. That's interesting. Anyway, what I want to say is I love being here. And I don't say that every place I am, trust me. But tonight, I get to be home. Tonight, I will be in my own home, sleeping in my own bed, alone. Oh, well, I don't know why that would be funny. I do stay in a lot of hotels. I stay in a lot of hotels when I speak at conferences about stress and humor and creativity, and sometimes they put me up in really sort of fancy hotels. You know, the ones I'm talking about, right? Where you feel like you can't go down in the lobby because really you don't have any lobby clothes, you know? You know the ones I'm talking about. You've stayed in nice hotels where they turn down your beds, right? I mean, not that my bed has not been turned down before. No, but this is different. This is kinder, I think. Yeah, those hotels, you know, where they put mints on the pillow. I found them as soon as I put the shampoo and everything in my suitcase. Little stocking stuffers. That's what I call those things. Look, Santa brought shampoo. Anyway, yeah, mints. I was not used to mints on my pillow at all. And I did. I just woke up and I just had chocolate, right? I mean, I know. I don't need that. I don't. And I remember this. I'll never forget it. I remember the first time I stayed in a really, really fancy hotel. And do you know this? Early in the morning now, the bellboy is knocking on my door. That's a fact. He wasn't even knocking. Honestly, he was pounding until finally I just got up and let him out. I did. I thought, just get out. I don't need that either. But the road has been a great teacher to me. I have never gotten tired of the road. And there have been some things on the road, of course, that have surprised me. Years ago, in fact, this was in Newsweek magazine. You know how Adopt a Highway is so good for a community because it helps keep a community nice and shiny like that. And so in North Carolina, there was a group of people who applied to adopt a stretch of highway, and they were denied. That's a fact. Does anyone know who that group was? It was the KKK. Yeah, no. At KKK applied to adopt a stretch of highway, and they were denied. I thought that was a little piece of misfortune. I did. I don't know how you folks feel about it, but I thought that was a little too bad. I mean that. I mean, if I was going down the road and I saw a sign that said the next 2.5 miles was going to be cleaned by the Klan, I think it's time to clean the car. In fact, if I'm going to North Carolina, I'm saving trash. Just keep those boys busy doing something decent, you know. Because they wear those white sheets and stuff, and well, except for the bedwetters, they have to wear that rubber, and that's got to get so warm, you know. But it is the same for all of us, isn't it? There's nothing like getting home. Even after this morning service, won't it be nice to arrive in your own house? It just is. You know, it's good to get home, no matter how far you've been, no matter. Even over to the dinner at the neighbor's house, you know, it's good to get back home. I live on a very diverse street that has done nothing but made my life richer, and it is a street full of children. God, there's a lot of kids on my street. There's really too many, okay? I mean, that's children, I don't know. Anyway, but did you know this? That kids, right, K through 12, kindergarten through 12th graders, did you know this? They will laugh on the average of 200 to 400 times a day. Did you know that? Damn it, people, I asked you a question. Did you know that? No, 200 to 400 times a day, and I don't know how they find that out. I don't know if they're following these kids around. I know that can't be right, you know, and how do you count a laugh anyway, right? You know, someone's like, ha, 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 7, I got 7. But the point is, right, the point is, when you were K through 12, you laughed 200 to 400 times a day as well. And it wasn't because you were sitting around telling jokes. You know, jokes have served me well, and I truly hope I have served well with jokes. But it only represents like 15% of why people laugh. Only 15%. Because why? Because it is so much more important to have fun than to be funny. And that's as individual as we are. I mean, my brother-in-law, for instance, Larry, thinks running a marathon is really fun. And if you look up fun in the dictionary, it is any activity that results in joy and laughter. And you know what? When we were kids, we knew a lot about both. When we were kids, in my house, I have 5 sisters, 6 girls altogether. We were raised Catholic, which should explain the 6 girls. And are there Catholics here? Former Catholics, yeah, see, I know. Put down your beers, raise your hands. And these are my people. And but when we were kids, we always knew that we were really, really funny at the dinner table when we could get milk to come through Stephanie's nose. Do you remember that? Everyone had a friend like that. In my case, it was my sister. I mean, and it arced. I mean, it was powerful. It was like, whoa, whoa, oh, you know, it was like, look at that. Look at Stephanie. Look at that. Look at that. She put out Dad's cigarette. Look at that. You know? And Stephanie's all like, you tell those people I don't do that anymore. You tell them. Well, hello, she's 62 now. Yeah, now it's like wine and mixed drinks. You know, it's like, yeah. But when we were kids, we knew what was fun. We knew that spending the summer at the swimming pool was a pretty good time. I mean, there was always that, well, I'll tell you honestly, I loved the pool. I loved spending the summer at the pool. You know, but honestly, this was my biggest fear at the pool. My biggest fear at the pool was that just as I got to the end of the high board, you know, the high board, that just as I got there, a huge wind would come up and blow me over sideways onto the lower board, where I would hit my face and upper body like that, and that everyone would see that all my friends would see that, and want me to do it again, you know. But for the most part, the entire summer was like that. It was just made up games. It was the swimming pool. It was camp, you know. I'm reminded of camp because Kylie next door went to camp this year. I wanted to go to camp. Well, I did go to camp, but it didn't sort of seem like a real camp to me. Well, my best friend in the world, Pam Davison, you guys know her, probably not, anyway. And she went to Camp Kataki. Camp Kataki. You know, horseback riding, canoe trips, cookouts. And I went to church camp. church camp. Like a ride in a basket down the river is a good time. You know, I mean, church camp, you kidding me? Fishes and loaves every night, you know? And trust me about this one, getting stoned at church camp, that just hurts. Okay. Yeah. But when we were kids, it was our entire job and we didn't even know it. But we woke up every morning ready to go to work because our work when we were kids was all about fun and happiness. It just was. And somewhere along the line, for different reasons, I imagine, only a couple that we'll take a look at this morning, adults stopped looking for having just so much fun and happiness. I mean, adult on the average, will laugh about 17 times a day. And some of you here right now are still behind that. And I know, kind of pisses me off, but and we were talking about it, and honestly, sometimes it's because we are in the habit of choosing fear over love. And that'll put a dent in everything. It will put a dent in everything. Don't get me wrong, I used to get very scared at night. That was the only thing about my childhood I wasn't really crazy about. I want to pause here for just a minute because I said piss, you know. And I hope you did not take offense to that, some of you. In other words, I'm not done yet. I say things. I know some of you are like, she's not done yet. But you know, I never say anything to be offensive. I don't, you know. So just forgive me if that offended you, and hang in there. It'll get better. It's just, I'm not finished. Maybe someday I won't say that. Okay? All right, good then. Oh dear, do you know where I was? No, no, so I'll just take a look at my little cheat sheet here. Oh yeah, scared at night. When I was a kid, I got scared at night. In fact, I think we all did. In fact, is there anyone here, when they were a kid, would let their arm or leg hang over the side of that bed? See, no, that wasn't gonna happen, was it? That was never gonna happen. Do you know why? Because you would get sucked under. That is why. And everybody knew that. Everybody knew that, except for that one kid without his arm. That was too bad. You know. And my parents knew it, man. They knew that I got scared at night. They knew it, you know. They knew it. You know, so do you know what they did? They would leave the door open a crack. There you go. There you go. That'll save you. I would surround myself with stuffed animals. I did. If I had to go to the bathroom or something, I would pick the least favorite, throw it in the corner, decoy. And what was the second scariest place in your bedroom? And the more you stared at that door, the more it moved. It just did. It moved. And if there were clothes hanging on the door, looked like a silhouette in the night, remember, looked like a monster. Remember that? Do you remember? I would call my mother in. I would call her in. I'd be like, no. And then there is a monster in my closet. And my mom was so wonderfully smart. You know, my mom's like, sweetheart, now if you are very, very quiet, won't you go to sleep? I don't think it'll come out. I mean, what kind of a mom? Of course, these are the same parents who would tell you how to hold a pair of scissors or a knife just right. So if you were running and you slipped and fell, you wouldn't tear the carpet, you know? Yeah. Yeah. But as we got older, things kind of changed, didn't they? In fact, you know, a lot of us started collecting all sorts of rules. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is what I'm sure of. There isn't a time that I get in front of the mic that I don't know there are people out in the audience who just don't like me. They just already don't like me. Kids are sort of not like that. You know, sometimes it happens even as you walk to the podium. You know, sometimes it happens, you know, because you say something like, I said this, you know, no. And after that, things kind of shut down because I broke someone's rules. That's what I mean when I say, I'm not done yet. Do you know why? And I don't say this in defense of myself. I say this because I've learned it from personal experience. Judging other people, that'll rob you of a lot of joy. Meeting people where they're at and trusting they're not done, that's gonna take you a lot further. Here's the other thing, that thing about fear. You know what, we as adults now, sometimes we're scared we're gonna make a fool of ourselves, right? Did you even know what the word embarrassment meant until you got into junior high? It just didn't matter. If your swimsuit didn't fit, it just didn't matter. It just didn't. I mean, it was a little uncomfortable, but you were going to go to the pool, you know? Oh, yeah, I had to wear my sister's two-piece suit. You know, it was hand-me-downs, right? So I'm like fourth generation two-piece suit. I lost the top of it after I dove off the high board, you know? I did, and I was not affected. I went up, I saw it, I got it, I put it back on, we're golden. You know, seriously, I had more fun to be done. You know, so it's interesting. The wonderful thing about humor is this. You know, sometimes people say, I don't want to make a fool of myself. And I always try to remind people, you don't need a fool of yourself to have a sense of humor. You know, there are so many different ways to embarrass yourself that are so far beyond the fact that you are inviting someone else to share laughter with you. So if the intentions of your heart is to bring joy to someone else, there's really nothing to be embarrassed about, you know? And so that would be the one thing. And the other thing is that honestly, for all the times we get embarrassed, because we do. We do. You know, we make fools of ourselves periodically. Everybody does. You know, and when your turn comes up, you know, when your number comes up and all of a sudden you're foolish, I guarantee you, if you have taken good care of your humor, that humor will take care of you. That humor will oftentimes give you the graceful exit you so yearn for. I wish I could tell you that this next thing was not true. I'm just going to share maybe like one of my worst embarrassing moments with you, and tell you what my friends, because I have good friends who remind me sometimes to laugh when my ego has gotten in the way. So I'm at the grocery store. I live alone. I know that surprises you, but shut up. Anyway, so I have been gone for some time, which means always the fast food, the restaurant, the like, you know. And it's okay and everything, but I was going to be home, and I was going to cook at home. And so I went to the grocery store. It's a family-run grocer. It's about like 3 blocks from my house. It's wonderful. And I got what was a significant amount of groceries for me, you know, a lot of nice fresh fruit, produce, you know, that kind of thing, right? And so the sacker, who I'm sure was just a high school kid, he puts it into a large brown paper bag. And it's full, and I know what's in it, and I know it needs support. And so he hands it to me, and I go to support it. All right, don't get ahead of me. It's is a true story. You can't even make this stuff up. I went to support it. I went to support, and, well, number one, I think he was standing too close to the bag. No, I do, you know, because I did. I just, you know, I did. I touched him, and right through his apron, and no, I touched him good, and I didn't say anything. I didn't say, well, I was in the middle of saying, you know, thank you, and you know, and he's like, oh, thank you, you know, and then I, you know, then I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. And now I can never go back there. I can never. I'm sure there are posters up, you know. Do not sack this woman's groceries. Don't do it. And I was devastated. I thought, should I write a letter? Should I call? Should I ask? You know, what is the protocol here? And I called my friends. I called my friends who had so much laughter over my humiliation. And they're like, oh, for Pete's sake, Marnie, how old was he? I'm like, he was like a high school kid. They're like, he was doing that all day, all day. He was like, here are your groceries, ma'am. You know? You know? And, you know, they made me laugh about it all over, although I still don't go back to that store. And, but it does. It helps you to have, you know, because we're all humans. We're all fools in this together. We all take our turns, and that is what humor is concerned with. It's concerned. Humor is concerned about our imperfections. It is concerned about our inability to live up to our standards and the standards of the world around us. We all stumble, and sometimes we fall, and sometimes it's hard to get back up. But if we have got humor, if we've got joy, you know, it's interesting this morning, all right? So some of us, we get up, you know, we snap our feet, we sing. Isn't it interesting? I think it's interesting that the one time that the right brain and the left brain are most compatible is during the playing of music. The second time, including our own instrument, the second time the right brain and left brain are most compatible is during laughter. You know, because it's numbers, it's timing, it's creativity, it's, you know, so anyway, you know what, I'm going to jump ahead to something else and then maybe bounce back to this, because I wrote this down as well to remind myself about what humor and what laughter, what joy does for us. But when you laugh and you laugh really hard, there's a lot of research on this anymore. It's almost old news. But when you laugh and you laugh really hard, your heart rate can go from 120 to 160. In fact, it's good for people with high blood pressure because of the sustained arterial relaxation that takes place during laughter. When you laugh, your arteries dilate. Have you ever woke up the next morning and your stomach hurts so much? And you're like, what happened there? And then you remember you hung out with your best friends the night before. In fact, you held your face, didn't you? You held your face. You're like, stop, don't, stop. I hurt so good, you know. And that's because your abdominal muscles release, boom, just like that, you know, with the laughter that comes out. Oh, right. And the hypothalamus in your brain, which is pretty much the control center, will transmit feel-good chemicals to other areas of your brain. Chemicals like epinephrine, norepinephrine, you've heard of endorphins, natural painkillers, analgesic hormones. The analgesic hormones are generally hormones that are released during strenuous exercise or when things are really exciting and quite happy. During, not to make anyone uncomfortable, but during making love, analgesic hormones, that euphoria that you feel, and by the way, I think laughter in the bedroom is a really good thing. I do. I think it's important not to point. But I think it's a good thing. There are so many blessings that come with humor and with laughter, that just the ease of anxiety, the ease of stress, and obviously, people look at stress, what you have to remember about stress, and sometimes what's really hard to remember about stress is that it's not an event. Gosh, isn't that odd? But it's not. It's how we perceive an event. And you already know that, don't you? If you left at the end of service and you get home and you realize that you have gone and locked yourself out again, you might have 3 or 4 people you can call on. And you might automatically, mentally scratch 2 of those people off the list because they're only going to make it worse. They're going to get on you. They're going to, didn't I tell you to get that little rubber poop thing and put an extra key in that? Remember, I told you to get that stone rock. I told you, and, well, I guess I'll just stop cooking and be over. Well, I had plans, but I'll go ahead and, But one of those friends, there's a possibility that one of those friends will show up, actually get you in the house, but they'll bring a bottle of wine with them. Right? They will, and maybe you can sit down and have a glass of wine, kind of catch up, be in your house, and the whole thing becomes like a blessing you didn't expect. Stress is not an event. It is how you choose. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, like, I don't know, there's some years back then that, I used to have a heavy foot on the gas. I'm not proud of that. I've lost some weight myself, Missy. Anyway, or maybe these are old, I can't remember. Anyway, worn out. Anyway, stop looking at my pants now. Anyway, so, you know how when you get pulled over by a state trooper, a police officer, that kind of anxiety and stuff, and now you're embarrassed even sometimes or frustrated, and you channel that into anger. You've done that, right? Even when you know it's your fault, And so I'm in western Nebraska, and there's nobody out there. There's nobody out there except for me and this state trooper. And we meet at the peak of this like little hill. It just woof, like that, and the last thing I see are his brake lights. So I know, and I deserve it. I'm clocking, I'm moving, So I thought, well, I'll just pull over, I'll just pull over and wait, for him to catch up. And so I get my registration, I get my license, And at that point, I also thought, well, I'd just get out of the car. And I did. And remember how your mom always used to say, there's a time and place for everything, and this is neither the time. And you know how you never really got that down, And so I'm leaning up against my car, have my stuff, and here comes a state trooper. He gets out of his, state trooper vehicle, and he starts walking towards me. And I said, do you have any idea how fast I was going? And he did. He just stopped. He went like this. And I said, yeah, do you know why? I pulled over, but he just started laughing. And he didn't have to, because he has a gun, and he didn't have to do that. And he said, do you know how to write your own ticket out, too? how sometimes you think if you laugh with a police officer or state trooper, maybe, and there's going to be a warning, maybe, instead of a ticket. And, but it was a ticket. And it needed to be. I was speeding, he caught me. It was right, that was right. And so he did. We just leaned up against the car. He wrote me the ticket. We're kind of laughing back and forth. And when he gets all done and everything, he says, I have never enjoyed giving someone a ticket. And I said, I am so happy for you. So, you know, we're not, again, just to remind you, only 15% of what it is we laugh about or what it is that brings us joy happens to be jokes. The other 85%, obviously, relationships. We're reminded of that, you know, in your life and in my life, whether it's a state trooper, the thing that brought it home the most was once I was like booked in Hilton Head, and me and about 3 or 4 other speakers, whatever, and we hear about this place to eat, and we know we probably shouldn't go. We don't have that kind of time, you know. And but we do this thing, and we go, and there's a wait. We didn't even anticipate that, but there's a wait. And now we think, well, maybe we should get something to go, and we're running out of time, and this is, we shouldn't be doing this. And then we get called. It's like, oh, well, this is okay, good then. You know, we still have a little bit. We can do this. And so we sit down, and here comes our waitress, and I'm telling you, she's finished. She was finished. She was just gray, you know, and she had food stuck to her, and her hair, you know, just probably looks like mine, and she just, you know, there's like dead relatives on the other side going, you know, drop the tray, follow the light, come on, you know, and she gets to our table, and she doesn't even look at us. She's like, what do you need here? Well, you would think if I had been kinder at that particular age, and so maybe a little beyond my own self-importance or whatever it was that was going on, I would have had compassion, you know. But inside my head, I'm like, well, this was well worth the wait. That's great, you know. But this man, this good man, this great guy sitting across the table from me, he sees her name tag. Maybe it's like Mary or something, right? I can't remember her name. And he says, you're Mary? And she looks up, and he says, you know, I was told if I ever come here, you gotta ask for Mary. You know, but there's a wait, and there's a line, and we're in a hurry. But then we get you anyway. This is so great. And I'm like, you know, clueless. And she comes back, and, you know, she's wiped herself off. You know, her hair's a little pinned back like that. And, I mean, we have service, you know. And by the way, service was the last thing on this man's mind, you know. He was just a good guy. He was just decent. It's interesting, I think, sort of interesting that being decent happens to be good business. But the fact of the matter is, you're not decent because it's good business. You're decent because really and truly we ought to all be decent, or at least working towards that, you know. You know, just be decent, you know. And you know, and being just that little bit, he just, not to sound corny, I'm not a corny person, but I'm telling you, he brought joy to her. He kind of changed the story, you know, that she was having. She changed things. And I think that is one of the grand gifts of joy, and looking at things, you know, with a shift in perspective towards the lightness, is that it changes your story. You know, after all, is it not true that we create the world we see? You think about it. You have met people in your lifetime who think the world is out to do them wrong. Everyone's trying to screw them over. And it does not matter who they come across. They figure out a way to see that that person is doing that. We create the world we see, and We are the stories we ingest and the stories we tell. Maybe there have been periods in your life that the only way you felt you could bond with other people is by talking about other people. Have you ever done that? I did it once. Oh, shut up! Shut up. But you know what I'm saying, you know? I mean, it took me a long time to figure out I was in charge of where it was I dwelt. We were just talking about that, about Philippians 4, I think it is 4:8 something, you know. Not that I'm not, don't get the wrong impression. I don't know, you know, the Bible as well as most people, but there are things I've never forgotten. I got kicked out of Catholic school in the 4th grade. How does anyone do that? Because of Valerie Lindemann. Anyway, so when we're talking about that other 85% of the things that bring us joy, things that bring us laughter, and we're talking about relationships, you mustn't forget it's also about your relationship with your own life, the relationship that you have with life itself. When my grandfather died, my grandmother made it very clear that she'd always been crazy about him. Of course, that was easy to see. But she also told me that the best romance is with life itself. And if you're having a pretty good romance with life, there's a real good possibility that all of your other romances were closer to success than they would otherwise be. So tell yourself good stories. You know, my favorite definition of laughter is that it is joy overflowing. It is joy overflowing. And if you take care of your joy, and you are responsible, of course, for taking care of your joy will take care of you even in the saddest of times. My aunt died about 5 months ago now. She was cremated. In fact, we think that's what happened. And no. I say that because in my family, and probably in yours, it is the way we roll, you know, at funerals, and some of the best funerals you've ever gone to, perhaps a funeral you would like to have yourself. It's a roller coaster ride, isn't it? It goes from laughter to tears, and laughter to tears, just like that, right? That's right, you know. And that is as it should be. It just is, you know. You know, I used to, well, okay, and that is, you know, the fact of the matter is there isn't anybody here who can say that one of those things at a funeral is more healing than the other, right? You can't say, no funeral, you can't say that. No one here can say that laughter was more healing than crying. No one here can say, you know, that laughter was more cathartic than crying. You know, that they aren't both, you know, gifts we were granted, you know, in exchange for agreeing to take our first breath. And the reason for that is that we were always going to need them both all of our lives. They are there to prop us up, to save us, to make our days richer. Christopher Fry, we'll close with Christopher Fry. It's always one of my favorites. He was a playwright. And he wrote this like in the late 1800s, maybe 1900s. No one here can call me on either one of those dates. And, but this is a paraphrase. He says, you know, that laughter was an escape, that it was not an escape from reality, it was not an escape from the truth, but rather it was a narrow escape from despair into hope, and to a belief that we could all persevere with joy, with laughter, that we could persevere through everything with those two things, at least those two things being our companions. And that laughter was not a vulnerable optimism. It's not. It's hard won. Are you kidding me? It's hard won. That's why you're down to 17 times a day of laughter, right? It is a hard-won maturity of delight. It is the laughter that stands in absolute need of an echo. You guys have been good company. Thank you.